planting. There's more to it. And I'm curious to learn from Chaitanya too, from her perspective. So I'll start with giving a high-level view of my journey into product, and then a framework that I have used, and a simplified framework that I've used and I've formulated, and I would love to share that with you all. And then we can talk about the skills that would be most useful, and the various different flavors of product management, various different pathways that we can actually take. Self-assessment and next steps, we'll talk about that. Okay, so this, if you all can see, this is my journey. It's never a straight line, right? It's always the humps and the ups and downs. I started with my undergrad back in India, came here to do my master's, then started my job in Wall Street in fintech, worked for big brands like Bank of New York, Wells Fargo, started off as a database developer. That's how I started my journey, right? Then moved into Java development, Java web services, modernizing, financial systems, using technology, really grounding myself in engineering, right? Then the yellow blocks you see, I'm sure most women can relate to that. As a mom, I had a child, a beautiful child that I had to be there for, so decided to take a break, right? And then again came the next phase of my journey, where I was at Boeing, again focus on solution architecture, really service-oriented architecture. That's where I moved into. Then I started realizing Costco, Sanmar, all these companies here that you can relate to. I realized I was missing one part. Technology was all good. I was missing that interaction with the user. Like, I wanted to be there in the forefront, talking to people and deciding what to build, not just build what is told to me, right? Back then, we didn't have the concept of tightly knit product team and all that, right? So that's what pushed me into, okay, let me think about project management and all that stuff. But then I had my second child. Then there was yet another career break. I never regret any of my career breaks. I absolutely loved them. But it was a very, very intentional, conscious decision that I made, where I did not want somebody else to take care of my child. I wanted to take care of my product, right? That enjoyment I wanted. It came at a cost. It was a trade-off, right? That did put me back a number of years. When I look at some of my other peers who are able to move forward, it did come at a cost, but I had it my own way, right? So then I moved into entrepreneurship. I started my own company called Art of Gifting. Some of you might know. It's a curated platform where we used to sell, it's a D2C market, handicrafts and handmade. Some of you may, I don't know if you're there, but selling puja mandirs, handmade, completely non-digital, using technology just for the commerce portion of it and the connections, right? But then I joined Microsoft as a program manager, and I helped drive their Azure adoption across CSEO. I learned so much more about how a tech company works. Although relatively it was much shorter period than other companies, I realized that I was still missing that question that was not answered, being in front of the user. I was caught up in the technology of things. I was not out there on the field, right? So then I went to Boeing. Vidya might know some of the people that we worked together. Phenomenal opportunity where we drove transformation and innovation in the pilot training area, right? So I ran their digital platforms and pilot experiences, and truly really learned about experience-based design. Start from the user and work backwards, right? And then I also ran the digital transformation for Boeing's space and launched the Starliner program, the commercial crew program. So really got an understanding of, in a very technically heavy, engineering heavy organization, how do you talk about the concept of product? Like, they would look at what product, we are rocket scientists trying to launch this thing. What product management, right? But phenomenal value. You unlock business value and create business efficiencies when you think from a product mindset, right? And then off late, then moved into healthcare intentionally. I've always steered my career my own way, right? I've been very specific about where I put my next step. It has come at a cost, but I'm very happy in how I drove it. Healthcare, I wanted to drive the same transformation in healthcare, try to understand the challenges there, and had my share of that. Healthcare, there's a lot to transform. It's one hard industry, but a huge opportunity. Now I'm in that green phase where I recently started a non-profit and start price transformation consulting services. So with all the wealth of experience that I have built over the years across industries, I want to help more businesses truly adopt a very simplified approach and not be scared of getting started on their transformation journey. And today why I'm here is all of you beautiful women who are interested in your next step. I want to share and learn from you. So we build this community. Some of these slides I'll skip through pretty fast, but you can always come back and we can have deeper discussions. At the uber high level, when you talk about product and all that, why do we do that? There's this concept of product-led growth, right? So there are several things that need to come together in order for you to help a business grow, create business value, right? Strategy and outcomes on one side, user-based research and user design on the other side, technology to create that the capability and make it happen, and everything is based on the data and intelligence. There are different components of it, but in the big sense, these are the 4 big buckets that I have experienced. And again, there are so many different flavors of product managers. Different companies have different flavors of product managers. There's no one size fits all at all. And that is why I love product management. It is what you make out of it. There is no one fit job description, and yes, there are job descriptions that get put out there, but it is completely such a creative field, and you have to pull people together. It's one of the hardest jobs, but the most creative that I have experienced. And the concept of experience, jobs to be done approach, working from the user, what job do they want to get done, and working backwards from there. That's what I'm a big fan of, right? I always find myself asking the question, what job do you want to do? Why am I here? Like, why? What is the why, right? And then figuring out how technology can help support that. And then you think about how do you create a business model that has that stickiness and ongoing, revenue model that you can keep running so that you can achieve growth. As you can tell, I love all these pictures. You'll see me drawing pictures. I'm a very visual learner. So there is a concept of product strategy, and I wanted to just lay the groundwork a little bit on this. Product management truly comes afterwards. First is about why. Why are you there? And the what, right? There are 2 aspects. The why and the what, that is only possible when you have a strategy in place. And the strategy just doesn't come off from somewhere. It is a creative process. It's like how we cook in the kitchen, right? We know what dish we want to make. Now we have all these ingredients, but there are different proportions of each ingredient. We need to know how much of the gas you have to turn on and what not to put in certain things, right? Same concept. You got to have that menu, that recipe that that comes from generations of experimentation, right? So product strategy involves, first you got to understand your problem statement, discovery. That's where I always say, get married to the problem. Live in the problem more, like immerse yourself in the problem so you understand the user base and what problem you're trying to solve first before starting to think about what solution exists, right? User research, understand your users, their context, and what problems they are having. Look at market and competitive research, right? There are so many people doing so many things. How are you going to differentiate in what you're actually building, right? Look at the macroeconomic forces. What's happening across US? What policies are there? What general global conditions are there? Climate change, sustainability, whatnot, right? What are those macro forces? And then look at internally in your company, what are your strengths? What capability do you already have that you can actually double down on? How well do they fit to where you want to, go? And what is the business direction, business strategy, right? Are we thinking of building a number of more warehouses in a certain area? Or are we thinking of reducing the physical footprint and just keeping it all digital? What is that business strategy overall, right? Sales and marketing, what's the approach? User design. Then look at what's from your technology perspective. Are we getting onto the cloud, or do we still want to live in data centers? Simple example, right? Are we embracing blockchain, crypto? Are we that mature enough? Or are we far from that? Where are we in that data? That self-assessment is crucial. So this is huge, but simplified distilled in a diagram. But that product strategy part, I often find that organizations miss, and we end up going in this mode of building, right? Building, and we have scrum meetings, and we have work items in Visual Studio, and like constant meeting after meeting, the agile way of doing, agile in quotes, right? Without having the strategy. Strategy is what actually gives you clarity on what the priorities are, what bets you should place, what you should not do, what trade-offs. That kind of strategic thinking, like if you were to run your own business, where would you put your money? Those things you would know. So the key deliverable that comes out of that is a roadmap, a strategic roadmap, and a long-term and a short-term version of it, right? I always say, people say product roadmaps as plans. There is a difference between that. A roadmap is a long-term view, a plan is an execution plan. There are differences there. So the high-level view, if you look at this, you do all the product strategy work, that is the brunt of the work. Then you can go into this lean agile mode of building a prototype, pilot, build, ship, validate, iterate. These are all common terminologies. We all know about these things. And then you figure out what your go-to-market strategy is. How do you take it to market after you've done your prototype? Who are the partners do you want to work with, right? What's your distribution channel going to look like? What's your brand presence going to look like? How do you engage with customers? So that's the entire part of go-to-market strategy. Then you launch, engage, and you continuously learn. Product is never done. Product is never done. It's always a continuous evolution process. And one of the most mature organizations, one of the criteria for maturity that I have seen is when you know when to kill your product. When you know when it is not working and you stop doing that and you're ready to pivot. It's not about just feeding it all the time, right? It's about knowing when to not do something and say no to it and change direction, right? So it's an iterative process. Some of this I'm going to skip. I think it might be too much of theory. But the idea of looking at opportunities and outcomes, and this whole product-centric versus customer-centric, that's an interesting topic. I believe that you've got to be customer-centric, but there are certain scenarios where product-centric might make sense. But prioritization is the hardest thing for a product manager, but the most essential thing to do. And there are different mechanisms where you can actually have an empirical approach towards prioritizing what you want to be built, and enough information behind to know how to validate what you have built is working or not working. You got to know what criteria you're going to apply, right? To validate if your call was right or wrong. So all that comes from that initial product strategy building. You got to have a team of people. It's not one person doing it all. You'll be working with, as a product manager, you'll always be working with people. You can never solve this problem alone, but you'll be working with people in a matrix organization, right? You'll not have direct reports until you become like a product leader, director, head of product, or VP of product, or chief product officer. That path, then yeah, you will have direct reports. But the product discipline as such is so beautiful, where you're influencing your stakeholders, influencing people to work with you, so you can co-create and build together. That's the beauty of this discipline. So this is a high-level view that we propose at Starprice. We use this. We start with what is the unique selling proposition at the center. That's the core thing a product manager is responsible for, right? Figuring that out through that product strategy synthesizing process. Focusing on problem and how pervasive is that problem, who's willing to pay for it. Because if nobody's willing to pay for it, you don't have a business model there. You don't have revenue, right? And then the next step is looking at people, process, and product. Because yes, you have this idea, now what do you do next, right? So the center is the why, then comes the what, right? And the last circle is the how. This is the EASE framework, is what we call it. Educate, align, strategize, and establish your goals. You establish your metrics, right? So it's all about execution and such. So that happens from ideation all the way to product evolution. And at the evolution phase, you might decide to continue to evolve the product or kill the product, pivot, whatever, different decisions, right? Main thing, these 4 other colored dots I want to highlight is learn how to place bets. It's about placing bets. For that, you need to be informed based off of those different factors when you build your product strategy, right? Then prioritize, as I said. Once you place your bet, prioritize whether it is features or outcomes. I am a big fan of outcome-based prioritization, but there is this whole concept of feature-based prioritization also. We can get into that later. Engage as in communication is the key skill with product managers. You have to proactively over-communicate. But when I say over-communicate, you should know what to communicate to which audience. Because you're steering the ship, right? Sometimes certain stakeholders may not need to know certain pieces of information, but you know that best. And the last is ship always, ship. Beyond the PowerPoint slides, get out there in the market, build something, don't wait for it to be perfect, but get it out there like Northwest Professional Women's Group. That's what I really love about this. You're not waiting to be perfect, but get out there, get in front of people, right? Sorry, I'm going long, but just couple more slides. But I wanted to introduce this concept, just for fun. Can you can't see that picture, but this one, can you find an anomaly? It says, it's a fire exit door, okay? It says, please close the door. Please close the door quietly as guests are sleeping. Fire exit door. Do you really know whom you're actually building that door for? Like, what's the purpose? Why would you do that, right?
Great picture, yeah.
And that one, I took that picture. This one is off the internet. That one, I took that picture. I was in one of the hotels. You can't see this picture, but where the buttons are there, it says fire recall and there is a red button. There is no other button to get the elevator to come to you. What do you do, right? Do you press the fire recall button to go up? when I'm checking into a room, I don't want to check in into a room, but I had to use that button. So again, the hotel managers said, that one button will work, just click that button. So what about user experience, right? What brand are you actually, what's that impression you're leaving on your customers? Anyway, I thought I'll just add this from a user experience perspective. So this is the message I wanted to convey. It is never about the product. It's never about the product. Product is a means to an end, right? It is always about differentiated value experiences, right, for the customers, and to create that customer delight. Otherwise, the customer will never come back. Like that button, that fire recall button, I will never go to that hotel ever again. Even if I have to pay 3 times more elsewhere, I'll go elsewhere, right? So it is never about, this is the early lesson that I learned as a product manager. I was so married to my product, I was so depressed when that product was taken and given to someone else, and somebody else made the call to kill it, or when I had to kill it myself, right? It is about knowing that your goal is not your product as a product manager. Your goal is your customer's experience and the value, differentiated value that you're creating. So if there's one key message you take today,
Slide, please.
if there's one key message you take today, I think it is this mindset. When you jump into product management, know that it is a means to an end, and you've got to figure out what that end is. Like, what is the why? What is it that you're working for, right? The career pathways, there are so many different ways that one can get into product. This is just a sampling that I could think of and I have experienced. I'm sure there are many more, right? One is the center blue line is when you start maybe as a business analyst,